Join us, the Humanitarian Heartbeat Podcast, on a journey where we delve into the heart of the matters that truly make a difference. Our mission is to create a platform where we can openly discuss topics that often go unnoticed or unexplored. We aim to shed light on these crucial issues and have meaningful conversations. We invite you to tune into our podcast, where we will explore the depths of these subjects and let our hearts guide the conversation. Together, we can create a space where everyone's voice is heard and where we can collectively work towards a better future. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Humanitarian Heartbeat Podcast. I am your host, Nia Imani, and I have the pleasure of interviewing this beautiful woman in front of me. Her name, although you probably don't even need me to introduce her, is Jasmine Souers. How are you, love?
I'm doing well. How about yourself? Thank you for having me.
Of course. You look beautiful. What is that, like a pinkish red? It looks beautiful on your skin.
It's a pink bodysuit I got from Target. You know, they don't sell a lot of regular shirts anymore. You got it's crop tops and bodysuits, okay?
Yeah. It looks great on you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Listen, I know everybody already knows about you, but I'm going to read your bio and we're going to jump into it as to why you are not just beautiful, but impactful too. Everybody, listen, of course, Jasmine is a young breast cancer survivor and passionate advocate for hope, health, and healing for all. Leveraging her personal experience and marketing expertise, Jasmine spearheaded national, y'all heard it, national initiatives to educate and empower women of color affected by breast cancer. Today, Jasmine is the founding president and CEO of the Missing Pink Breast Cancer Alliance and editor of More Life magazine. Her mission is to harness the power of community and collaboration to improve the lives of all people of color affected by breast cancer. This includes creating shared resources, encouraging knowledge exchanges, and facilitating collaborations to reduce duplicate efforts and maximize resources. Woo!
Mouthful.
My first question is, tell us about the moment you found out you have breast cancer. Walk us through this journey of yours.
So I was working at a homeless shelter. I was in communications. I've always been in nonprofit sector. And it was really interesting because it was one October that one of my colleagues put together a breast cancer awareness event. And she was just so adamant that I need to come over. I was heads down. I was like, girl, I got to work. And she was like, no, I really want you to come see this. I came over. And in that event is actually where I learned how to do a self-exam. And they thought, this is what lumps feel like, right? I'm like, this is cool. And I go back to my office. That was October. Within a couple of months of that, I started noticing some changes in my breast. I had noticed that my left breast was swollen. I didn't recognize it as nipple discharge, but I would take my bra off and there would be things in my bra. So I thought that I would have triple D's. So my mind was I was catching food. It didn't really dawn on me that it was only on one side. And like, again, it was painful, but I never felt a lump. One day I had on a rib tank top and I caught myself in the mirror and I could clearly see that the left breast was bigger than the right breast. And so I took my clothes off and I did my best rendition of a self-exam and like blood discharge, spelled. So I remember that day I called my mom and I was like, yo, I think something is wrong. They went to the hospital. They turned me away. They said that they don't do those kind of screenings. They couldn't replicate the discharge. They said it wasn't red. They didn't feel a lump. They don't do mammograms. Go to my primary care physician. Primary care physician sends me to get a mammogram and I pass it. Now, I do remember getting a paper that said that I had dense breasts and that more screening may be needed, but I didn't know what dense breast meant. And I thought that mammograms were the screening. So I felt like I had done the screening. So it was really a lack of knowledge, which is why I tell people today, like, I wish I would have asked more questions. What does this mean? And not assumed, because I assumed that because my doctor knew my family's history, my grandmother had breast cancer twice by this time. Some of her sisters have had breast cancer. I had a cousin die at her for 40s, about 49 from breast cancer. And so, but I don't have the gene, so there's that. And so I just assumed that a doctor that had also treated my grandmother, knew my family history, knew what those things meant for me. And that, unfortunately, that was not the case. So
Mm.
I went about 6, 7 months undiagnosed. But I continued to check myself, and the bloody discharge just got worse. Had a Black OBGYN, thank God. And I went to her. I was 2 years into my marriage at this time. And we were having this conversation about family planning. And I said, I just feel like something's wrong with this boob. And she said, if you think something's wrong, something is wrong. And that changed everything for me, to have someone that actually heard me, but to have a provider that could say, this is not my area of expertise, right? She sent me to a specialist. And that person did another mammogram, which I passed. But during the exam, when they went to do the actual pressing down, they saw the blood this time, and they were like, I think we need to do something else. So it was actually a breast MRI that found the breast cancer, which was, I mean, things happened really quickly. We did the MRI. We almost the whole breast lit up by this time. Um, Within a couple of weeks, we had biopsy results. I got those on December 30th, 2016. I had my mastectomy January 24th, 2017. So things moved very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, they move quickly after I got to the right person. It makes a difference. Is why like I tell people, get second opinions. It makes a difference, the person that you are talking to, and whether or not they are listening to you and hearing you.
So my next question is, I guess, the West Philly in me. Did you go back to the physician and say, all along, I knew something was wrong, but you did not hear me? Did you, or did you not have time for that?
Let me tell you what got real interesting. What got real interesting is that hospital had me doing ads for them, for the care that I received from the doctor that adequately diagnosed me. I think they might have taken out the part about being misdiagnosed, instead of saying like it was a complicated. So what I had is I had multiple tumors across 9 centimeters. And so some were invasive, some were non-invasive. It was a lot to take in. Um, but the largest tumor was a 1 centimeter. So the doctors could not decide whether I was stage 1 or whether I was stage 3. And as you know, those are treatment decisions are very different between stage 1 and stage 3. Um, and so that's what they said. Like, it was a complicated diagnosis. She was too young. The mammogram was first line. But as I learned later, that mammograms are not good screening methods for young women and women with dense breast tissue. So we shouldn't have stopped at a mammogram to begin with those 6, 7 months ago. But I didn't know that, right? Yeah. So yeah, I got to do campaigns for the hospital. I mean, the other doctor was amazing. But I did. So I'm pretty sure that was awkward to like, look at this patient that I like overlooked, and now she's representing. And like, I'm in like their newsletter, and I'm
Right.
in like yeah, it was interesting. So I don't know. I don't remember. I feel like I may have sent her an email or something. I know it was updated in my chart for sure. But I think one of the things when I first got the news, beyond being shocked, because I remember looking around the room, like I looked at my mom and asked who the doctor was talking to. I was just completely shocked, like what is going on right now. But as soon as the doctor left, because they were trying to give us like as much information as they could, because they rushed the biopsy results. I remember crying out. I told her something was wrong, and that I think was the worst part of it, of trying to advocate for yourself and someone's telling you, no, you're okay. You're like, but I don't think I'm okay. So that was really hard. That was tough.
Yeah. And it almost makes you feel like, in the midst of them telling you that you're okay, like a hypochondriac, like, well, maybe I am okay. Like, did you question yourself? Well, like, okay, like maybe what the heck?
I didn't, but what happened is, so I was 25 when this started. I was 26 by the time that I was diagnosed. So I'm going to be honest. One of the things that I'm honest about with myself is that when they said that it wasn't cancer, even though I felt like something was wrong. So actually, when they said that I passed the mammogram, she said maybe it's a breast infection. That didn't make sense to me, because I know infections typically have other symptoms like redness or hotness or other symptoms in the body,
Correct.
not like it's just bleeding and it just hurts and it's isolated. That didn't make sense to me.
Mhm.
And so I was willing to accept inconclusive results. I tell people like, please don't do that. Because I was hoping, like they said it wasn't cancer. So I was willing to accept anything not cancer, which was a dangerous game to play. And so I did not feel like something was okay. I just wasn't aware of how bad it was, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. And while you are very, I guess, humble and sort of putting the onus on yourself, I think as much as we trust the physicians to
Yeah.
know that information, we are just as much as physicians of our body, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so like that really shook some things up for me. When I think about, I tell people now, like, don't be willing to accept inconclusive. You need an answer to something. Your body is telling you something is wrong. And so I will tell you, like, the week that was leading up to, I think we had like a week or two up to the biopsy results. And I woke up singing It Is Well by Bethel Music the week that I was going to get my biopsy results. And in that moment, like I literally like rose out of my bed singing. And I said, Lord, I hear you. And
Mm,
so in that moment, I accepted that it was going to be cancer. But what I was also accepting is that no matter what happened, I didn't know what well meant. No matter what happened,
mm,
I would be okay. And I didn't know what the road looked like. And so I had this information. I didn't tell my mom this information. I don't want to freak people out. But like leading up to those days, my mom is like, I'm trying to prepare my mom now. And I'm like, all things are possible. That means good things, that means bad things. But we trust God to get us through with all of it. And she's like, don't be negative. And so I talked myself out of the piece saying, I'm just being negative now. This is why I was shocked because God was trying to prepare me. Like we literally went in there, like we were making jokes. Like this is like we were trying to make it light. But when that doctor peeked her head in the room, we was like, oh no, this is not good. So it was interesting. But no, to your point, I did not think that it was cancer. I just didn't think that I was okay.
mm, mm. And so your story talks to just that intuition
Yeah.
and how important it is to trust your intuition as a person, as a woman, as a Black woman.
Mm,
So never doubt your intuition. Never.
no, no. Not at all. In both cases, to your point, the being dismissed and overlooked by the doctor and also Holy Spirit trying to give me peace about what was to come and me like and not accepting that, allowing somebody else to talk. My mom meant well, I love my mom, but she absolutely like it was countering what God was telling me, basically. God was telling me, like, you prepare for this. And I'm like, am I being negative? So I think to your point, it's absolutely it is trusting your intuition and trusting your spirit will lead you in the right direction.
Mm. And so let me just tell y'all, these what she is saying in my questions were not written down, but she is spitting truth and fire because that's another nugget. So how are you well with what God has given you in life? How are you well? How are you okay with it?
That is such a big question. Let me tell you that, and I'm going to try not to get emotional because we have a whole thing to do. Um, there is just God showed up in this season in ways that I just did not imagine or understand when I was first diagnosed. And I can truly look back on my life and I can say, I have lived in the goodness of God. I have seen the goodness of God in my life. I'm looking back on healings that
Mm,
were unexplained. Like doctors don't understand why my body healed the way it did. I'm looking back on me being out of work and not literally like the math is not mathing. We should have had less money.
yeah.
Bills were continuing to like I had my dad put aside $500 a month just in case. Bills continued to get paid. We never had to ask for money. I'm looking back on this season and I can see that, and I said this recently, everything that felt like it was breaking me only brought me closer to him. If I lost everything else and I gained him, it was worth it.
Mm,
When I went into that hospital room for that surgery, it was my first major surgery at 26, and I cried all the way to the hospital And then my family was there. So I fixed my face. You know how we do, fix my face. And when I was getting rolled into the operating room, I could not stop shaking. I was terrified. And I realized that I was not just afraid of dying. I was afraid that I would die having played small, that I had built a safe life, that the only reason I'd be able to explain to God why I didn't do the things he told me to do is because I was afraid. But how can fear and faith coexist? They cannot. And so if I knew that had to answer to the king and say I didn't do it because I was afraid, like, well, do you know me? If you know me, then you would have had no fear to do that. And so it really woke me up in
Whoa.
that sense. And I remember when they told me I had 5 years, I on hormone therapy after I finished the mastectomy and reconstruction and radiation and all those things. I asked God, I said, if you must take these 5 years, give me the foundation for the life I've always wanted. After that, it's been a hard season. Because I went through a divorce during that time. Did God unlearn some things during that season? He grew me in ways that like I can't explain. So when I get married, I gotta know that that man is amazing. Because God has built something different in this season. I started co-founded for the Breast of Us, and then God told me to leave for the Breast of Us. I started another organization. I had to work with him to build this. And so he's restoring. That's what I feel like.
Mhm.
I don't know that when I asked the foundation, I realized the things I built would fall. The things I built on my old foundation had to fall in order for him to give me something new. And I love this version of myself. I could not be this version of myself had I not gone through
Mhm.
everything that I've gone through.
Are you a pastor?
No.
I uh, yeah, because I think the words aren't coming out my mouth, Nia talk, is because I think we have all been through seasons in our life and we question God. But what's so powerful to me about, and I don't even know everything about your story, but when you arose from your sleep and sung It Is Well. And since then, it's sort of like you've been singing that throughout your life, It Is Well. And it's not like things have been easy. You probably want to slap somebody. You probably have been ups and downs. You are maybe forever because the patients and the friends and the family that have gone through cancer are like, I'm always connected to cancer. It's not, I'm not, I'm just always dealing with signs, symptoms, whatever, right? But God has given you that spirit of song just throughout your life. Do you feel that way?
I do. I used to think that I would say, like, I recognize it as special to come out of the darkness with the light,
Mm,
right? And now I'm in a place where I realize that God is calling me to not just hold that, to give that to other people. And so, like, my role in this space is changing because I feel like if it's not about Jesus at this point, what are we doing? If people are going through the dark and they're getting stuck in the dark, what are we doing? And I need my work and my presence to bring people closer to Jesus. I need people to not get stuck in darkness. I need people to come to the other side. And most importantly, I need people to have to attach to understand that the source, whatever it is that they think they see in me, I need them to connect to my source. Okay. Because whatever is within me can also be within you. And it is necessary for you to carry that light because there's a darkness that you are also assigned to. So that I feel like is why God called me back. Because I asked him, like, after I left for the rest of us, what are we doing? What do you want me to do here?
or-
And he made it clear that I was to come back and to help bring unity to this space, but to also make sure that people are able to use their lights, light up darkness the way that he's allowing me to.
You better go ahead. I know that's right. And how are you doing that? Tell us about your organization.
Yeah. So when I started this is very interesting. I knew what it was like to be called out of something because I
Mhm.
felt God to me very clear when it was time to leave the first body of work. And he also told me to start this one. I think the thing about being called to something is that you don't get to quit when it's hard. You don't get to quit when you don't understand. You don't get you don't leave until you're called out of it because I knew what that felt like. And so what he made clear to me is that my goal is to bring people on one accord. Now, when I first started, I thought that that was like just getting people to do the same thing. What I have learned recently, and it's about getting people who have the same mind, the same spirit, the same purpose to do the same thing. And that's really different. And so the Missing Pink, it was started with the sense of focusing on community and collaboration, because I feel like we are more powerful when we are working together. There is so much competition in this space. There's so much backbiting and all these things in this space when truly all of us are needed in different ways, even
Right.
for the same people. And I think when we can get really clear on what do we do best, we can start to align ourselves so we can create a holistic healing type of system, right? And so what I've started with the Missing Pink is improving the lives of people of color affected by breast cancer through community collaboration. This is also inclusive of men, which are often left out of the breast cancer space. So the Male Global Breast Cancer Alliance, they have been great partners with us since we started. The first collaborative piece we did was More Life Magazine. The first issue was more of a collection of different experiences, different stories, but all kind of centered on information, inspiration, hope, and the kind of things I wish I would have known when I first started. This second time around, I really sat with God on this because I don't know, as I learn, I have to be willing to let God to evolve things. Now,
Mm,
I've struggled with perfectionistic tendencies, and so it can be really scary to feel like you're evolving in real time. But if sometimes you don't evolve, you die, right? If you don't evolve, it does not become what it's supposed to. So in the second round, I decided to try a little bit more targeted approach. Focus specifically on Black breast cancer because there's already some research on where those hot spots are. I did research on organizations that are doing great work, and I looked at the different expertise that's happening in different communities. And so what we did is we curated a resource that specifically for Black women or Black people, because we have a Black man in there. Um, but we aligned that, like I said, that we can build a holistic system. We align their different expertise from different communities and we put it into one resource. And that to me is actually pretty dope. But I can also tell you, like, I remember in the editing process looking back and how many of the people talked about the role of their faith in their work. And I said, God, this is what it means to be on one accord. This is why I don't have to beg them to promote the resource and they promote it on their own, right? They understand the value of it. Why? Because we're operating in the same purpose, the same mind, and we have the same mission to help do more better together, right? And so I'm learning as I go, which is kind of scary, I would say. But it just requires different reliance on God because now I know, like, hey, me and you, it's just me now. We got to sit at this table. We got to decide how we're going to do this. So I found that approach to be really effective, really cool. And so I'm looking forward. I have a meeting actually today to talk about the next issue.
I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
And talk to us about Black breast cancer because I feel like we are in a space where DEI is not a thing and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Why is Black breast cancer important to talk about?
It's not just the disease itself, the fact that we are more likely to be diagnosed younger, the fact that we have more adverse reactions to treatments, the fact that we're not represented in clinical trials, the fact that we are more likely to be diagnosed with more aggressive cancers like triple negative. It is also the way that we survive the storm. That survivorship piece sometimes is often overlooked, especially for Black women, because people tell us to be happy that we survived. And they don't understand what has happened to our minds, our bodies, our spirits. And oftentimes we will be so dedicated to moving forward that we don't pay attention to those things either. I did my first, I've been doing like creative healing workshops lately, which has been beautiful for me. I did my first one at the YSC Wellness Summit back in the fall. And on the drive there, I told my mom, remember when I was in middle school and my mom had a deer. And I remember on the drive home from Alabama to Jacksonville that pieces of the car were falling off and we could hear it.
Mhm,
But the car was still functioning,
mhm,
right? And I think that's what we do a lot in this space,
mhm.
that we have taken really big hits and the pieces will fall off. But if we can still move forward, like we'll just get to where we're going. But it takes intentionality and it takes time and it takes space to be able to say, I need healing and I need restoration. And we don't give ourselves that enough. And so I think we're dealing with not just a different disease, we're dealing with different needs in terms of what does support look like? What does the restoration and rebuilding look like?
that analogy, I didn't go through that analogy, but it hit home, I can tell you that. And what I value about what you're saying is it is okay to check in with yourself, to pause, because I think as a community, it's a compliment to say you are a superwoman. It's a compliment to say, girl, keep going. I'm tired. I'm gonna stop right here and then I'm gonna keep going. you know?
Absolutely. And I tell people now this, and I was like, I've been quiet for the last couple of years. I felt like I was very intentional with that, but I feel like it's time to turn the mic back on. And something that I talk to people about is that when I first started advocacy, even though I was coming from a good place and wanting to help people, I was being motivated by the fear of death and
Mm,
the fear of getting in front of Jesus, not being able to account for what I was supposed to do. And so that put me in a place where I was taking on all the things, running all the time, helping all the people, doing all the and burnt out. And I had to get a place. I was like, God's primary, like he primarily wants me to be his daughter. He primarily wants me to be in his presence, not to do all the things, right? Because I always think what was happening is that if people needed me that bad, the way that like they needed Jesus, I am not God.
right.
Should not have put that burden and that um kind of run, you know what I mean? Like that burden on me to do all the things and be all the places because he doesn't need me to be him. And
Mm,
so I think I had to unlearn that before I could come back into this space. So that I could get comfortable not doing all the things. So I can get comfortable with production not being my value, right? With my work not determining my value. God had to detox me before he was allowed to bring me back to this point in this space.
this is this is your book title. He didn't need me to be him. When you said that, I heard everything you said after that, but that was the pen. That's your movie title, your book, that your Broadway show. You better trademark that. I'm not playing no games.
Look, I'm writing it down right now.
That oh my gosh, that just speaks.
Because
I'm
we do. And I tell people like that's one of the reasons that I got stuck. We moved so fast when we started for the rest of us. People were applauding what the efforts that we were doing. And the applause is making it really difficult for me to hit all the warning lights of like, this is not sustainable. You cannot keep this up. You are not attached to this work, or the work is becoming your identity. Like I was just like, oh. But people said we're doing a good job, right? And that's what you're saying is like people will affirm us to killing ourselves, basically, to burning ourselves out. And it has to be on us to say, no, this don't feel good. This doesn't feel right. This is not sustainable. We have to check in with ourselves for sure. Even as advocates, even in survivorships, not just going through treatment. Yeah.
yeah. And I almost think that, we said culturally that's what we were told, but I almost wonder if that's what they really meant. Like I think about my great grandmom. I don't think she wanted me to feel as burned out as she felt. My grandma, my mom, so I wonder if we took that, I don't know, the wrong way, sort of, like, yes, keep going because we don't want you to quit and we're passing the baton to you. But I definitely don't want you to experience the things that I experienced. I don't know.
I remember watching something, it was a video, social media is a place. It was a video and the guy was like, my mom was never tired. And everyone was like, ooh, what do you mean? But I think that's it. So during this time in these last couple of years, I really was by my mom's side when my grandmother went through metastatic breast cancer. It was her third diagnosis. And she, by the grace of God, was allowed to live 5 or 6 years after that. So this last year or two was pretty tough. And there were some times where it just felt like my mom is the primary. Well, my grandma was married, but like there's only so much her husband can do as an older person. So my mom became the primary caregiver. And there were some times where I'd have to go home to just help my mom, like to let me leave. And honestly, I was in the middle of more life both times. I was in the middle of more life the first issue when I was staying at my mom's house to help my mom care for my grandmother. And I'll tell you one of the most amazing things is I remember like she had a breakdown in the middle of the street because she was just overwhelmed. And I remember I was praying over her and I was like, Lord, show her hands and willing helpers. And my spirit said, you are the strong hands and the willing helper, so you got to go home. But
Mm,
there were other people there that could have helped. And they didn't seem to recognize the breaking the way that I did.
mhm, mhm,
And I heard someone say, Ashley Detman, we just did an interview for the launch party of More Life. And she said, um, our breaking points can be different because what bends you might break me. Right. And so like it's getting to the point where we can acknowledge that it's a lot for people to step in sooner. But I just remember watching a lot of people watching my mom suffer and feel like it's okay. Like she can do it because she wasn't broken. Instead of being like, she's bent a lot. Can somebody please? And so then I just stepped in by the grace of God. So like, I will hold you up the best way that I can right now. But I do think because I watched a lot of other people kind of watch her suffer, it did seem like if you're not broken yet, then there's no reason for me to step in.
mm, mm. Wow, that's another book. I mean, what? And can you speak to that mother-daughter relationship? You've mentioned her a couple of times. How important is that relationship, period, in getting through your life and getting through mom's life? How important is that relationship?
My mom is like my best friend. I went through a lot of hard things as a kid. And so I think our relationship was strained for a while.
Mm,
As an adult, I'll tell you like embarrassing. I will tell, I think it's the only place I'll say this. So this is the nugget. When I got married, I went from, and I think I mentioned I'm divorced now, but when I got married, I went from my parents' home to my marital home. By the time I was there, I think I was like 24, 23, 24 when I got married. Um, I was on a routine though. I come home from work and I sit with my mom and I talk. I come home from work and I debrief. When I tell you, I went through a couple of weeks when me and my mom was just crying. I was living up the street. Like I was, it was just that routine of like, I can't come home to you now. Like I understand I have a whole husband over here, but like
mhm,
I miss like I'm being able to come home to you now. And so even though I was married at the time, my mom honestly was my primary.
mm,
My mom was the one that was cleaning my drains after my surgery. My mom was the one that was sleeping in the hospital bed every time I got hospitalized. My mom was the one that was praying for me even before we got the results. Which is kind of funny. Like you did like the CAT scan because after we realized it was cancer, then they did the CAT scan. I think that's what we did to
mhm,
see if it had spread anywhere. And I think that one takes a bit of a while. I was in the machine, sleep. My poor mama, like in the living room and the waiting room, all like stressed out. And I'm just like, right. So it's just really interesting the way that God has built our relationships because I've always been independent. I got it. I got it. And
mhm,
now I'm 26. My mom's helping me shower and
mhm,
feed me. And like at the time, like it was tough, but I think God just told me like it was humbling in the sense that I became thankful that I had someone that could do that for me. Because I don't feel like my ex-husband necessarily was graced for that.
mm,
And that showed.
mhm,
Um, and so my mom and like people I go to stuff now, people ask where my mom is. Like, where's your mom? People look for her mom because they are so used to seeing her with me. And so she's my biggest cheerleader, she's my biggest supporter. Um, my number one fan and like my greatest source of support. Yeah.
mhm. Amen. Amen. And through all this, when did you decide to create more life?
More Life was a vision that God had given me around the time that we started The Missing Pink. And what was interesting is I heard something recently that said if you end big, sometimes you feel the pressure to start big. And I did feel that pressure when I started The Missing Pink. I was like, I just did this really good thing. I have to do a lot. And like it's just me. And so I had to get to a place where I said, Lord, if there's one thing you want me to focus on, what is it?
Mm,
He said, more life. And so I just love this idea of what it means or what it could look like if we are pulling together the resources and the support for people. If we are centering it on hope and action and what you can do and how we can help so that people don't feel like I love the idea of bringing it together. Because again, it's not going to be one person that solves anything. And the moment that people can get that out of their mind, like, the better will be. And so at this point, like I said, I really love the approach I took with the Black Breast Health. And I'm talking to someone today because I want to talk through the next issue and think through how we're going to do that. But to continue this collaborative approach, not what it's not about the work of one, it's about what we're going to accomplish with the work of many. That's where the wave is, right? You're a puddle if you're just flashing by yourself, but you can get a little wave going if you can get some people moving behind you.
What is next for you? I mean, you already know what I think is next for you between the book, the play, and the Broadway show. But what is next for you? Have you had that conversation with God, or you're just taking it day by day? What?
I think it's slowly unfolding. I just had, so obviously I'm gonna keep with More Life and working on that. I have a vision to do some leadership link ups. I have a lot of one-on-one conversations with leaders in this space. And again, I just think there's value in us connecting with each other. And so I want to create these maybe quarterly meetings where we can both help each other solve problems. I think that's necessary. We're willing to exchange knowledge and information. We're willing to support each other. We're willing to network, but also like, who is it? I think it's the Robert Wood Foundation. That might be Robert Wood Johnson. Maybe I think that's what it is. They have like they're called hunch sessions where people just say, I have a hunch about this, or I've noticed this. I want people to start throwing ideas out. And let's just see where it lands. Cause like I truly believe that like you may not have the answer, but you may spark something for somebody else. And people are so guarded, they don't want to share, they don't want people to steal, because I've had that happen to me.
Mhm.
But I think it's so important. That's how we're going to get ahead. We have to be willing to share. So the leadership link ups is coming up. The next issue of More Life is coming up. And then I think God is doing something really special with these creative healing sessions.
Yes.
I posted that I just did the one for BaddieCon for the rest of us. And the message that I got back from women saying they felt like God met them in the room, they had been praying about something. I'm like, God, you were doing something in and through me to even get me back into that space. But for me to be a vessel for your presence, to be a healing source for other women, to process their pain and to think about their purpose through your wisdom and word that you've given me, right? Somebody posted, what a beautiful ministry you have. And
Wow.
I was like, Lord, is this the ministry? So I'm going to continue to sit with him on that because there are some dreams that seem to be resurfacing right now. And so I'm just excited to see where we go with that.
I love that. I love that. How do you know that it's God's voice or your voice on this journey? Do you strengthen your relationship with God? Like my question is, how do you discern God's voice from your voice? How do you know this is what you're supposed to do?
I feel like it's a knowing, like it feels like a voice on another level,
Mm,
right? It's just something about it is not like there have been times where I've had thoughts where I'm just like, where is that coming from? And so for me, it is a knowing, but if I ever feel unsure, it can't contradict the word. And so there's nothing that I can hear or believe that I am hearing that can contradict the word. And so oftentimes I'm like, Lord, I'm not sure. Can you show it to me? Or Lord, I want to understand this better. I think that for me, that's how I've been able to get to this place. I've had to take my hurt and my process and all these things, my thoughts, and take it back to his word so I can get the wisdom and understanding that I need. Sometimes it will correct a thought, or oftentimes corrects a thought or a belief. But for me, it is it's just a knowing. And if it contradicts him, then it's not him. It can be a
mm,
thought.
that's a word. That's a word. Listen, I said before you a pastor, and somebody said it's just I love your ministry. Just saying. You're a disciple. Out, the church isn't just the four walls, right?
Correct.
And
Correct.
so you're doing it. Out of everything that you have done, you are an editor. You are a bad mama jamma thriver. You are beautiful. You are a CEO founder. But if I had to say, who are you? What would you say?
Child of God.
Mm,
I think that's it. I think that's the most important title that I could have because that is the title through which everything else about me flows.
mhm.
Right? Like I can be, and that's one of the things I've tried to stop using a lot of titles like CEO and founder. I was like, if I'm just a child of God, I'm gonna be whatever he want me to be. If I decide I want to make movies tomorrow, I'm a producer tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like I'm really just gonna like that is the best title. That is the most important one. If I can settle in being a child of God, then we just show up where we show up.
pastor, keynote speaker. Where can people reach you and find you?
Yes, well, you can on the morelifemag.com, themissingpink.org, and I'm on Instagram at the Virtuous Visionary.
Y'all, what I know for sure is people are going to learn so much from your voice and your words. But I think what's more impactful, and I think this is what you'll be very excited about, is I know somebody is going to find Christ because of you from this interview. And I thank you for being obedient to God. I thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank
You
you.
guys have heard Jazz. Whoop! We will have another episode, and it's going to be a Bible study because she already did it. So we're going to have to do it again, y'all.
Look, I actually do have a small group for entrepreneurs and creatives. I'm taking a break because Jesus told me to spend some time with him this season, which has been really beautiful. It's been really beautiful. But to your point, like I do that, I don't know. Like I said, I feel led to like light up the dark, man. And I want other people who are meant to be lit to get lit. And that's only coming from Jesus. And so, yeah.
Y'all follow her, because when you follow her, you're going to follow Christ.
Amen.
God bless y'all.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Humanitarian Heartbeat Podcast. Remember, each conversation brings us closer to a world where compassion thrives. Stay connected, stay informed, and let's keep the heartbeat of humanity alive. Subscribe, share, and be a part of our journey to make a difference, one conversation at a time. Until next time, keep your hearts open, your minds curious, be a blessing to others, and give agape love. God bless.